There is a new predator spreading across the Appalachian Mountains right now, and after 30 years of scientific study, no one can agree on what it actually is. To understand why, you have to start with a silence. For most of American history, the Appalachian Mountains had a wolf. The eastern wolf, the timber wolf, whatever name the local people gave it, was the top predator of these forests for longer than anyone can measure. It hunted the deer. It kept the mid-sized predators in check. It shaped the entire ecosystem of these hills. And then, 1 century at a time, we removed it. Shot, trapped, poisoned, driven off with government bounties, until by the middle of the 20th century, the wolf was effectively gone from the Appalachians. The forests kept growing. The deer kept multiplying. But the animal that had held it all together was no longer there. And then, quietly, something walked into its place. In the 1940s, in the far northeast of the country, wildlife biologists started noticing a canid that did not fit anything they knew. It looked like a coyote. It moved like a coyote, but it was too big. Western coyotes, the ones that yipped in the desert country of the American Southwest, ran about 20 to 30 pounds. What people were seeing in New England and eastern Canada was closer to 40 pounds, sometimes 50. Some were pushing 60. In 2012, an animal that anyone would have called a coyote was shot in Newfoundland and weighed 82 pounds on the scale, twice what a coyote is supposed to weigh. Something new had arrived, and it was moving south. What you're about to hear is not a story about coyotes. It is the story of an animal that walked in wearing a coyote's name. The first hints came in the middle of the 20th century as the animal spread down from Canada and New England into New York, Pennsylvania, and by the 1970s into every state in the eastern half of the country. It reached the Appalachian ridges of West Virginia, and North Carolina. It crossed into the Great Smoky Mountains. Today, if you live anywhere along the spine of these mountains, from Alabama up to Maine, there is one of them somewhere within a few miles of your house, whether you have ever seen it or not. But it was not a normal coyote. Farmers said the calves it took were larger than any coyote should be able to bring down. Hunters said the tracks were wrong, too wide, too heavy. Homeowners heard the howling at night and swore it was not the small, yipping chorus they had heard out west. It was deeper. It was longer. It was a sound the old people said belonged to the wolves that had been gone from these hills for 100 years. And then the biologists started doing DNA tests, and what came back was not what anyone expected. The animal spreading across the Appalachian Mountains was not just a coyote at all. It was a hybrid of 3 species at the same time. This is the part where the story stops being about wildlife and starts being about something we do not have a name for yet. In 2014, a team of scientists led by evolutionary biologist Javier Monzon at Stony Brook University did the largest genetic study of the eastern canid ever conducted, testing more than 420 animals from across the Northeast and the Appalachians. What they found was remarkable. On average, the animal's genome was 64% western coyote, 13% gray wolf, 13% eastern wolf, and 10% domestic dog, 3 wild species, and a 4th from the porch, all mixed into a single creature, and it changed depending on where they tested. In the Northeast, more wolf, less dog. Down through the southern Appalachians into Virginia, more dog, less wolf. Deep into the American South, almost no wolf at all, just a splash of dog mixed with the coyote base. The animal was different in every part of its range, and it was still changing because the hybridization had not stopped. It was happening in real time. This is the largest hybrid zone ever documented in any mammal on the planet. Not the largest for a canid, the largest for any mammal anywhere. And it was formed by an animal that did not exist 150 years ago. The scientists who studied it started calling it the coy wolf, and the name spread through nature documentaries and magazine articles until millions of Americans thought a new species was walking the woods behind their houses. And this is where the story takes its strangest turn, because not all the scientists agree that the coy wolf is real. The disagreement is not about whether the animal exists. It is about what to call the animal that everyone can see. One group of researchers, led by the IUCN Canid Specialist Group in 2016, argued that the eastern canid was genetically and physically distinct enough to be declared a new species. They proposed a scientific name, Canis oriens, meaning eastern canid. In their view, an animal with its own body size, its own hunting, behavior, its own howl, its own home range, and its own consistent genetic signature had earned the right to be called something new. Another group of researchers looked at the same data and reached a completely different conclusion. They pointed out that the mix of coyote, wolf, and dog is not consistent from animal to animal. Some eastern canids have almost no wolf in them at all. Some are mostly dog and coyote. There is no single stable genetic signature that defines all of them the way a real species is defined. In this camp's view, what we are watching is not a new species being born. It is a large, restless population of coyotes with a smear of non-coyote DNA at the edges, still moving, still mixing, still nothing you could point to and give a Latin name, which means the animal that is currently spreading across the Appalachian Mountains, appearing on trail cameras in every state, hunting deer in the hollows and taking chickens off suburban porches, is, by the honest answer of the scientific community, an animal without a name. Now here is the part that matters if you live anywhere in these mountains. Whatever it is doing something no coyote in the West has ever done. The eastern canid can bring down a full-grown deer, something the western coyote almost never attempts. Studies of eastern populations show that fawns in the spring and injured or vulnerable deer in the winter make up a real part of its diet, filling the ecological role that the extinct eastern wolf used to fill. It is not a perfect replacement. A real wolf is more than twice its size and hunts in a real pack. But in the emptiness, the wolf left behind, this new animal, whatever we choose to call it, is slowly reshaping the food web of the entire eastern forest. And it is not staying in the woods. Eastern canids have adapted to human landscapes with a speed that has surprised even the biologists who study them. They den in city parks. They cross highways in the middle of the night. They live inside New York City, inside Boston, inside Washington, D.C., and along every suburban edge of every mountain town from Asheville to Pittsburgh. They eat garbage, they eat pet food, they eat the occasional small dog or cat left out after dark. A population that started as a handful of hybrid animals in Ontario a century and a half ago is now the most successful large predator in the eastern United States, and nobody is entirely sure what it will become, because the hybridization is not stopping. Every generation, the eastern canid meets another dispersing western coyote or another feral dog, or, in rare cases, a stray wolf from the Great Lakes country, and the genes keep mixing. Biologists studying the animal today believe it is still evolving, still finding its shape, still becoming whatever it is going to be. What they cannot tell you is how long that will take, or what the animal at the end of the process will look like, or whether the country will still be the same country by the time it is finished. What is certain is that a predator the state spent a century removing is back on 4 legs, moving through the same hollows and ridgelines the eastern wolf used to move through. And it did not come the way anyone expected. It came in through the back door, wearing a coyote's face and carrying a wolf's blood and a dog's tolerance for human beings, and it walked into an empty seat at the top of the Appalachian food chain and sat down. Tell me in the comments if you have ever heard something howling in these mountains at night and where you were. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. There is more coming.